Good evening, everyone, and thank you once again for joining us today. As we continue the Bent the Coach web series, we feel we've come heaps and bounds. Our dream is now turning into reality. Prashant, Vimal, and I have worked really hard over the last 6 months to get where we are today, and we can't but pat our backs for this. Once again, we would like to express our gratitude towards all your support. We couldn't have done this without you. I just remembered this story as I was preparing for today, and the story was about the lunch box at school. When I was little and I used to take this lunchbox to school, Mom would ensure I got a wholesome meal because I would be eating just that for almost 9 hours post breakfast and before getting back home. She would sometimes customize it with a note or a funny poem, or even sometimes add a personal touch by making a face with tomatoes and a cucumber smile. There was always this surprise and this personal touch every time I opened the lunchbox. The Bent the Coach is actually an inspiration from that thought. It is to make things convenient, bespoke, insightful, and more. We at Bent the Coach have a single goal, and that is to make coaching so convenient that it's no longer a niche, but is actually accessible, and everyone has an access to a good coach. Our team is diverse. We have over 100 years or 80 years of corporate combined experience, a combination of operations, commercials, and human resources, with a little sprinkling of hospitality, retail, and others. We bring to Bent the Coach a varied sense of experience and a lot of story to share. So therefore, we have a lot to boast about because we also have a lot of international accreditations to our name. However, the one thing we really like to boast a lot about is our synergy and the agreement that we can only offer and want to only offer the best coaching services out there. On that note, let me introduce you to our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Alan Bell. As they say, first impression is a lasting impression. Our previous session on digital body language was about that. It was a learning for us too. So much so that I found myself reaffirming this. I'll say it again. First impression is a lasting impression. Alan and I actually met at a networking event hosted by him. What intrigued me about the invite was that it was honest and trust building. I'm actually very averse to networking, especially in spaces where I don't know anyone. And being there and actually speaking about myself is another thing that I don't enjoy. But it was Alan's way of connecting that actually helped me gain that confidence and join that networking session. I stalk people's LinkedIn profiles. I stalked his. And I found that his picture was so trust building. There was so much, the appearance of the picture was almost like, okay, this is somebody I can go and attend a network session with. And here we are. A few weeks after, a few chats after, Alan and I agreed very generously to share his ideas on professional profile picture. And what does it take to get one? So before we begin on this amazing journey of what the profile picture is all about, kindly extend your cooperation today by always keeping your mic on mute, by typing in your questions in the chat, and we'll try to address them and as many of them as possible towards the end. We aim to close the presentation at 8 o'clock, so we will take as many questions as we can before that time. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and it's an honor and pleasure to be here, particularly for you guys on a Saturday evening. So I appreciate you attending and taking time out of your busy schedules. I will run through a presentation. I would like to keep it interactive. So please feel free to use the chat to put comments in, and we'll have the odd quiz question and poll as well as we're going through. So let me introduce myself first. I'll go to the presentation. Okay, I've lost sight of everyone, so can you, there we go. So you can see that, yes? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. So what I'll cover is I'll introduce myself and where I've come from and why I'm sat here. I'll introduce the power of a profile picture. I'll use some of my words, but also other people's, because it's not just me that thinks it's a powerful thing to do. There's lots of research and viewpoints globally on profile pictures for all sorts of purposes. I'll talk about professional photography and the differences between having a profile picture taken by a professional versus an amateur and versus a DIY approach, a selfie or something else. And then not everyone can afford professional photography. A lot can, but a lot can't. And if you must do DIY, I'll give you some hints and tips and guidance on how to go about it. And then close, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. Okay, makes sense?
Sounds good.
Let me just get to the first one. Okay, so believe it or not, I started photography just 3 years ago. I'd never really done it before. I had a point and click camera when I had young children. They're grown up now. And it was something new that I'd never really explored apart from on the odd holiday, that sort of thing. But I got hooked. And this lady here, Mandy, my other half, my partner, was the reason. Because 3 years ago, we did a photo shoot together where she was the model and I had a lesson from a professional photographer in the UK. As you can probably tell from my accent, I am English, British, from a place called Halifax, or Halifax if you pronounce it with a H, but we don't, from Yorkshire. Been in Dubai, which is where I am currently, for just coming up to 5 years on the 1st of September. And Mandy's been here for 4.5 years. And we have 2 cats, as you might have gathered, both Persians. The grey one is Fluffy. He tends to be my cat more than anything. And the black one is Maximus. Both rescue cats here in Dubai, funnily enough. So what got me into photography was I took some pictures of Mandy and she said, you might think about having a lesson. And I said, well, okay, but as long as you be the model. So we struck a deal, took about 18 months in preparation, and that happened, the photography session in the UK in June of 2018. And I was absolutely hooked. I didn't own a professional camera. I didn't own a digital single lens reflex DSLR camera at the time, mirrorless or anything. So when I got back to Dubai after the session, I bought a second-hand version of the camera I'd used in the photo shoot. And so it started. Did my first shoot August of 2018 for a friend, and it built up from there to the point that a year later, just less than a year later, I'd spent 33 years working in the IT industry as a salesperson, mainly in the UK. And my claim to fame is pretty much all of the organizations I ever worked for no longer exist in their original form. Because in that 33-year career, everyone got acquired. So latterly, I was with a company called EMC, a big American $24 billion American conglomerate, included VMware and so on, and for those of you that are, shall we say, tech savvy. And I'd been there 7 years when they got acquired by Dell and became Dell EMC, and Dell became Dell Technologies. But to be honest, that was one too many. Previous companies I'd been with, Sun Microsystems, Digital Equipment Corporation, Data General, had all been acquired. Either I was with them or I'd just left because I saw it coming. And this was just the final straw. So I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to do photography. And we started off doing a bit of everything, because people assume if you've got a camera, You can do weddings, births, fashion, product, motor vehicle, automotive, architecture, you name it, you can do everything. During COVID, we actually learned that what we really enjoy doing is portraits and professional portraits. And we've developed an art of capturing personalities. And during that time, for profile pictures, I've developed what I would class as my mission: to rid the world of bad profile photos. Now, you might think, actually, that's quite a lofty thing to try and do, because there are billions of images out there in the world, but it covers two areas. No one should have a bad profile picture today, because if you've got any self-respect, why would you want to put a bad picture of yourself out there, particularly if it's for business purposes? Number one. Number two, why are there photographers that don't know how to take good pictures of people in profile photos particularly? So there's an education element there as well. And for me, it's become a bit of a mantra, this whole being able to capture someone's personality, to get them laughing, engaging, bring that smile to the face and to their eyes. Yeah, it's so fulfilling. And I won't say it's regular, but quite a lot of the time, on quite a few occasions, we've done portrait shoots for people, and I have to say it's mainly the women that do this, but they cry as a result of seeing the image. And I'll say cry in a good and positive way, because you can literally see their posture change, the shoulders go back, the whole engagement, self-esteem and belief in themselves rises a significant amount. Now, I'm not saying everyone's like that comes into our studio, but an awful lot of people are. And we've got testimonials, some that we don't ask for, some that we do, where people will say, I've been using the same photo for 10 years. It no longer looks like me. If you can see this guy in the background on my Zoom background, James, he's a lawyer. He's just changed, but he was a lawyer and was using the same picture that he was about 15 years younger. So when you met him, you're thinking, is that the same person? Doesn't look like him. Yeah. So what we're able to do through what we do and what we've learned in the last sort of 2 years in business is make a significant change and have a significant impact on those people that we've done shoots for. So during COVID, we stopped doing everything, pets and families and whatever, and we concentrated on corporate profiles. And that's what today's talk is about, because I want to talk about the power of a profile picture. Right, put in the chat if you can. I don't think I can I see the chat? Let me have a look. Yeah, see if I put it to one side. Put it in the chat if you believe a profile picture is powerful or not. Yeah, just start engaging. Let's just see what some of the responses are. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have a talk about, in fact, let's have a question. How much time does it take to make a first impression from a profile photo? So when you see someone's profile image, how much time do you spend actually making a first impression? Okay, them all saying 30 seconds. Anyone else got a view? Any more? No. Less than 5. Prashant is correct. A lot less than 5. Mira, thank you, Mira. Vishal, 3 seconds. Yeah. Put you out of your misery. Less than 1 second. So research in psychological science says that we can look at a profile image and form an initial judgment about a person in 0.4 of a second. Now, those figures, you see different research that says 1 second, but even so, in 0.4 to 100 milliseconds, yeah, you can, or yeah, 1 second, basically 0.4 to 1 second, you can judge someone. Now, the question then becomes one of, is your judgment correct? And what do you do having made that judgment? And the reason I say that is, if you're looking at someone's profile picture on, let's say, LinkedIn, which is what I will cover more and more today, does that, not having a profile picture, does it stop you looking at any further at the profile of the person? And in a poll I did recently, 62% said they wouldn't go any further if on LinkedIn someone didn't have a profile picture. But then also, when you actually meet the person in face-to-face, so we're starting face-to-face again now, it's not all on Zoom, but even on Zoom you form judgments. Was your impression of the person correct? Okay, so my question to you, and again, generically, feel free to put it in the chat. Anjani showed the picture of me as part of the invite. How many of you looked at that picture and thought, yeah, we quite like the look of that picture? We think we can trust this person to say something useful, and therefore we're prepared to spend an hour of our Saturday evenings on a Zoom call with this person. Yep. Or did you just do it for Anjani? Because that's who sent the invite. So put that in the chat. I'd be interested in your feedback. So while we're talking about impressions, okay, who took less than a second to form a judgment on this guy? I expect you can't even measure that because it's so short. Yeah. But what impression does this photo me. Thanks for that, Vishal. Yeah. What impression does this image create? So just again, put in the chat, nice guy. Yeah. Not on the guy because I believed in Bento Coach. Oh, yeah. So this on, yeah, good. Thanks, Sabita. So 1 up for Bento Coach there. Approachable. Now, that's a very good word there, Zinger, because your profile image should make you look approachable. Prashant's put reliable there, and that is, again, something that you want to have as a result of your profile image, unless you're trying to scare people away. Now, Anjani's put trust, again, another positive comment. Yeah, and what I would say to you is, what questions? Does he look approachable? I think one of you said yes, but I suspect you're all looking and thinking the same. What do you think he does as a job? So again, put something in the comments, please. And it's a known fact, all of us are salespeople, believe it or not. We all sell every day of something, whether it's ourselves, whether it's a product or a service. We own businesses. Yeah, we're talking and communicating, which is part of an inadvertent sales process. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. On that basis, would you buy from this man just from seeing his profile picture? Now, I can say, okay, you might not buy something immediately. If you didn't know him, you didn't, you know, he was just on the telephone, you hadn't seen his profile picture, you'd probably say, oh, it's a cold call, go away. But if you saw the guy and then you met him face to face, I think you'd have a positive impression initially and be willing to meet, because he does look treat. Someone's put beard trimmer. Yeah, well, there's an idea. I need one of those myself, actually. Batteries keep going flat. But the point is approachable, trustworthy, professional. He, believe it or not, is actually a life and a business coach. And his focus now is on young men and women, sort of teenagers, in terms of career guidance and how to make the best and the most of themselves. Okay, if I showed you this image, what are your impressions of this guy? So this is an image I took that I call the Godfather image. So yeah, Anjani's put very corporate, banker, actor, business tycoon, lawyer, steward. Yeah, yeah, serious. Yeah, I would suggest that. Yeah, very, you know, sort of a methodical approach. Yeah, very, very corporate in look. This guy is using that image as part of his LinkedIn profile. Okay, so if you go into LinkedIn and you go onto your home page, you'll have a little circle with a picture of you or something, but hopefully you and a good picture in that. That's what he's using for his LinkedIn profile. And then you've got the banner and all the content and so on, yeah? But still, I think fairly, maybe not quite as approachable, quite a serious look, intense, yeah, good word, Prashant. What about this one? What does this portray? Any thoughts in the chat on that one? Friendly, yeah. Humorous, modeling for a chair, yeah, good one. Yeah, or a waistcoat, flippant choice of book, yeah. So this was a deliberate pose. Now, I wouldn't recommend using this in LinkedIn for a profile picture because LinkedIn is about business. One of the interesting things today, and this comes back to what Anjani was talking about in the last session, in terms of body language and approach and everything else, is you have to look at what platform you're using digitally as to where you put your images. And profile images, particularly, this is not a LinkedIn profile image per se. It's not something you would use on your home screen, and I'll explain why a little bit later. Okay. Now, who'd realized that it was all the same person? Anyone? Okay, so Nandita did. Yeah, well done, Nandita. Yeah, 1 or 2 saying no, 2 and 3 yes. Yeah, 1 or 2 no's and so on. So the point is, you had formed different judgments from the photo of the same person. From the middle one being all corporate, you know, powerful, a little bit intimidating, perhaps. The one on the right, as I'm looking at it on the screen, you know, the playful one. Yeah, different side of the personality. And the one on the left is actually a few years older. It's about 6 or 7 years, I think, was that image, not done by me, but it's actually a pretty good profile image, in my opinion. Yeah, but all the same person, which is interesting. So first message on that is you can never judge initially, even though you might make that 0.4 second judgment of a person. How accurate is it when you actually meet them? And in what circumstance will you meet them? And where did you see the profile picture? And the reason I asked that is an important question in terms of what platforms you put your profile image on. And as I say, today I'm going to talk about LinkedIn as being the sort of primary one. But there are lots of platforms out there where profile pictures are needed, from Facebook, yeah, to whatever. There's lots of them. Okay, so why do you need a good profile picture? Now, if I'm going to talk on LinkedIn perspective, yeah, then I'm going to first position it in terms of digital growth, the digital economy. I don't know what the latest figures are as a result of COVID, but there is no doubt in my own mind and what I saw on the news and the press and everything else, the digital economy. So people buying on Amazon, using Netflix for video streaming, you know, watching films, content, all that sort of thing, YouTube, you name it. All these digital platforms have grown at this sort of trajectory over the last year, 18 months during COVID particularly. And I have to say, I've done a little bit of that myself. I've watched YouTube a lot because I used some of the time when I was stuck at home to learn new techniques and tips and things from a photography perspective. But I also love films. So Mandy and I have sat down and watched Amazon, Apple TV, Netflix, BBC iPlayer, you name it. There's all sorts of different content out there. But more importantly is the second point. Everywhere you go where you use a digital platform, you leave a digital footprint. because believe it or not, it's all connected. And with the advent of artificial intelligence, a lot of companies are now using AI to research about you more than you actually realize, which can be sort of scary, but actually could be a good thing if it's done in the right way. And we've seen the growth on these new digital, I suppose, streams from Amazon, Google, Netflix. You know, we're all here on a Zoom meeting. Some of you will pay for your Zoom license, some won't because there's a free version. For me, because I'm doing a business and I need Zoom regularly and I tend to do meetings that last an hour rather than 40 minutes, I pay for that service. But I have the option, and I'll cover that just in the end, to do something creative with Zoom in terms of my own profile picture. Some of you may not have a profile picture on your Zoom background or on Zoom itself when you're in the waiting room, but it could be a missed opportunity if you're in business. Yeah, but it's yet another use, not just LinkedIn, but another use of a profile picture. Did you know that recruiters, a lot of recruiters, particularly in large corporate organizations, use what you put out on social media to qualify whether you are a suitable candidate for a job, for example? Yeah, so what I would call headhunters, people that approach me occasionally. You know, we've got this opportunity back in IT sales. Do you want to look at it? Will already have checked me out. Yeah, become the Anjani digital stalker that she mentioned earlier. Yeah, prior to making contact with me. And I know that the company I worked in, EMC and then Dell Technologies, used AI, including images of people, to do a first pass cut. So if they would get 1,000 people applying for, let's say, 25 jobs, yeah, they would automatically cull half of that just from the social media presence. Yeah, in fact, if not more. And that would include what images they used for their profile picture. Yeah, I see Anjani's putting there, I have done it in my past life as a talent. Presumably you were trying to find talent for use in your own business or previous business. Yeah. So it's a valid point. It happens now more and more in terms of both human interaction, but also artificial intelligence. The next thing I would ask you is, as an image, which you're going to use to present yourself, it should represent who you are and what you stand for. Would you agree? Anyone disagree with that? If an image is out there of themselves, would they not want it to represent who they are and what they stood for? Again, please feel free to put the answer in chat. So my next question is, how do you want others to see you? As a successful business person, man or woman, a confident, approachable person, we go back to the images of Samir earlier. Yeah, which one of those shows him as most confident and approachable, or good at your job, or for some other reason? So Prashant's put authentic, and that to me is a big factor as well. And you want to build as part of that the trust and credibility from your image. Effectively, if you are using pictures or for profile picture on things like LinkedIn, the whole objective there is to get people to click through and to read about your bio, your biography, and understand more about who you are as a person. In today's digital world, a lot of people are expecting to hear and see more, particularly of business owners and entrepreneurs, to get a what we would call a 360-degree view of a person. Not only from the initial impression, do we know, like, and trust them? Are we prepared to do business with them? But actually, what are they like outside work? What's the personality? Do we feel we could connect with them and work together? You know, if I'm looking for a new job, I might look who would be the manager, might go and meet them, but then I'd check them up online and see what they're like. What do they stand for? What are the comments or causes are they commenting on in social media, for example? Is it aligned to my own thought processes or things I like or dislike? Yeah, so all considerations to think about. from the perspective of LinkedIn, you have to look at what the purpose of LinkedIn is. And I think we've got a poll here. I didn't make a note, Prashant. Yeah. So if you'd like to put the poll up, please. So we're going to put a quick poll up here around how many of you actually are using LinkedIn. And let me just cover off what I mean by that. So on LinkedIn, you can put your CV, your resume, both in terms of hard copy, physical copy or digital copy, but of a printed version that you had at home, as well as text in your biography. You can search for jobs, you can research companies that you might want to do business with, or you might want to work for. And you can also, believe it or not, use it to enhance your professional reputation. In the past, I viewed LinkedIn as a place to get a job because I'm that old. I was around when LinkedIn started. Yeah. And when I was in the technology industry, particularly in EMC and Dell Technologies, the question was, oh, we need you to be posting about Dell and EMC in your LinkedIn profile. And my attitude was, I'm not doing that because LinkedIn is about me, not about the business I work at. Reality is now I run my own business as a photographer. Then LinkedIn has become very important for me to build my network, particularly as we're doing corporate headshots and profiles. And therefore, I want to connect with other business owners and entrepreneurs. And the networking that Anjani mentioned earlier is one of the ways I'm doing that. So just looking at the poll, the first question was, how many of you are actively using LinkedIn this way? Yeah. And we've got the answers. I will show those in a moment. And how many of you use LinkedIn to check out someone before you meet them, doing an Anjani? Yeah. Or during or after the networking event? Yeah. So that's particularly important for me in terms of the networking event I run. And interestingly enough, a couple have answered, well, in fact, everyone's answered, but a couple of responses on who has a selfie as a profile photo on LinkedIn. So let me just end the poll and share the results. Okay, can you see these? So how many of you are actually using LinkedIn this way? So either putting your CV out there to search for jobs or to enhance your reputation. Yeah, not too far off 50-50. So 55% yes, 45% no. I'd be interested in the no's. Why? What is it that you don't feel there's a need to use LinkedIn to put your message across or to do some of the things we've talked about? Yep. How many use LinkedIn to check out someone before you meet them? Yeah, 82%. Yeah, that's a little bit higher than I saw the other week, but actually it's an interesting one. Yeah, and who has a selfie? Only 2 out of 11 people had a selfie, which I congratulate the other 9 of you. And the 2 that do have the selfie, is it a good one, is my question. And if not, let's get it changed, going back to my mission earlier, and let's get it sorted. Okay, any questions in the chat on that, please put them in, but I'll carry on. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what's the purpose of LinkedIn. It's now owned by Microsoft, and they will be using the information that's in there, including images, to market themselves and to sell that information to all sorts of organizations. And it's part of the terms and conditions. And like a lot of us these days, I don't know about you guys, but for me, you'll sign terms and conditions without reading them because a lot of the time you have no choice if you want to use the platform. So something to bear in mind on that one. Okay, so for LinkedIn, we're concentrating on that. What's the value of and I've put in brackets good because I take good pictures, therefore I want them to be good on LinkedIn. What's the value of a good profile picture? So LinkedIn themselves report that a good photo will receive 21 times more profile views than someone without a photo, 9 times more connection requests, and up to 36 more times likely to receive messages. Whether it's a good message or a bad message, because sometimes you might just have people reaching out to you, trying to sell you stuff. I get that in my business. totally unconnected to anything I'm doing, but they're trying to sell me oil drums or something, I'm thinking, well, I'm a photographer. So do your research if you're going to do that, is what I'd say. But interesting statistics that a difference of just having a picture can make. Now, there's a question from Vinod. I have a question. Do you recommend sharing the resume on LinkedIn? My own personal view is I would tend not to, unless you are looking for a job specifically, but I would put maybe some career highlights and have a focused LinkedIn that allows you to target who you're trying to get to. So if you're doing it as I want to get a next job, then work out who you want to work for and target your LinkedIn to that person or persons or companies. Putting a generic CV or resume on LinkedIn is just going to mean you might get, lots of people just discarding it or reading that and not having a conversation. You remember I said everyone is a salesperson at the beginning? The best salesperson is you. And if you can get into a conversation with someone, you're much more likely to succeed to move forward in terms of career aspirations or finding the next job or whatever. So I would do that. Yeah, okay, so got to move on because I've just got a nod on the time. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of detail. So we talked about LinkedIn. The question is, what do you want your profile picture to say? And the second question, which goes back to the two with the selfies, I might suggest, is what does it actually say? So food for thought. So this is something that the Bento coach, our co-host today, put out, I think, in this last week as prior to this. And the interesting one here, the winner, although with a third of the votes, is brand identity. So people want their brand to be shown in their profile image. That can sometimes be challenging if you haven't got a brand identity resolved. And a lot of clients that we have in our businesses, doing photographs for them, have not thought through what their brand actually is in terms of color schemes. What should I wear? Yeah, who is my target audience? What factors do I need to take into account? And this actually leads us on to what a professional photographer would be doing, which is guiding you in that process. So I'm going to take myself as an example. Did you know there are online services? In this instance, I used Photofeeler.com. So address is at the bottom of the screen. So the picture that was taken as a profile picture for the invite for this event, I've taken the original image, put into this site. This is who I am. I'm the co-founder director. I didn't put in there I was a photographer. Yeah, and I asked for views, and this is a representative sample of 80 people, live, real people that are available through the site, of which there are thousands of people participate. And this image of me was indicated 7.9 competent on a scale of 0 to 10. Yeah, the higher the number, the better. So above average in terms of coming across as competent. Coming across as likable, more than half, so 5.4. Could have done some things around the image, and it suggests in the notes and the data some things you can do to improve the image potentially. And influential, 8.7%, which is probably why Anjani's got me doing this session, because she thought I looked a little bit influential, yeah. But if you have your own profile image, you can use this or other sites and get a view, independent view of whether your image is good or it sucks. So I'm going to show you an example of someone we had in our studio a couple of weeks ago that I would regard as a good profile image. Now, this is just part of the image in the sense of what you'd then see in LinkedIn, which is how we'll be using it, is going to be sort of 70% of the image in terms of the facial features and so on. We'll take up that little circle, about 70% of it. But the attributes you're looking for, likable, approachable, confident, trustworthy, and so on, are all there as part of this image. Some of the things that a professional will do that an amateur won't are things like professional lighting, showing catch lights. So if you look If you can see this on the screen, you look closely at the eyes. You've got quite a nice catch light in the top of each top left, as you're looking at it, eye, which shows the catch light indicates the person's alive and it was taken in a real sense. Yeah. If you ever see images of people without catch lights, it looks slightly odd. Yeah. Other things, image sharpness. Smile reaches the eyes, nothing distracting in the background. So your focus is on him, not on all the stuff that's going on in the background. Yeah, and what I would call sensitive editing. So he is, what is he, 48? He still looks, well, maybe slightly younger than that, but we've not removed all his wrinkles and creases and everything else, because when you see the guy in person, you still want to know it's him. And that is something we would use on a LinkedIn profile image. Now, here's a different image we took at the same time, slightly different look. So it still comes across as confident, personality shines through, happy, so one or two slightly different attributes. Still got the same factors in terms of lighting, catch lights, sharpness, quality of image, and so on. The pose this time is a little different though. So we wouldn't use this image. It was deliberately designed that he does public speaking. So above his left shoulder, we've got a blank space that we would then put messaging and text. Yeah, so if he's presenting a topic, we could put a slide presentation in that space. We could put, as I say, a key message about something that he's doing, or he wants to get a message across to his audience. And if you remember, that's one of the uses of LinkedIn, is to put your message across in a professional way. So that's how we would use this, or in the website. So we'd take that out and put it in the website, in the About Us page, or some other commentary at the side of it. Does that make sense so far? So I thought, okay, let's drop that one into Photofeeler and see how that comes up. Yeah, so I put him in as a sales director, which is he's actually changing new role, or sorry, he starts a new job. He's just transitioned from one company and starts the other one in a couple of weeks. But this is one of the images we're giving to him to use in his profile online for things like messaging on LinkedIn and so on. So competent, probably slightly lower because he's not wearing a suit. And again, think about clothing when you're doing this, but still above average. Very likable, 9.2 out of 10. Yeah. And influential is still pretty good, you know, nearly 3/4. So not a bad image for the right use case. Not a LinkedIn profile, but something you would use in LinkedIn itself to get a message across, or the website. So again, it doesn't have to be a profile image. You can do it with other images as well. Okay, so would you do business with this person? Yeah, please feel free to put that in the chat. Some of you may recognize him as being me. Yeah, and it was deliberately done for an advert that I put together, which said, did you let yourself go during COVID? So you need to update your images if you did. And that was the point. I love Zinger's comment. I would try selling him pizza if you could pay for it. That's a good point. And the other thing there is a bag of cornflakes. Yeah. So think about, and house cleaning. Yeah, lots of good ideas coming through here. Think about what image you put across and your impression. So you formed an instant impression around this particular image and said slob. Yeah, SLOB, slob. Yeah, and that was the idea, to get that message across about, have you let yourself go during COVID? Sort your life out, get a good image, get it on the internet, on LinkedIn and so on. Yeah. And I thought the only person I can do that with is myself, really. Okay, so why go to a professional photographer? Conscious we're running short on time. So a good photographer will ask questions first and then shoot later. So I'll let you read this comment. Yeah, so enough said. The good ones will capture your personality. They will get the lighting right. They will help you with the posing, because a lot of people are not comfortable in front of a camera. Doesn't matter what form of camera it is, even a selfie and stuff, it can be very difficult to pose. They will provide you with good quality edited images, and those are key. So that's part of the value you get from going to a professional photographer. So I'm going to ask you to spot the difference now. Put these in the chat, please, between the following two images. Okay. So please feel free to put the chat comments in there. What are the obvious differences you notice? Yeah. Wait for the chat to come through, but in the spirit of time, yeah, so the image on the right is more natural. Yeah, straight versus angled, correct in terms of pose, background facing the camera versus side view, lighting, sharp versus not so. All good points, smile, angular, yeah, spot on. So both images, so the one on the left shot by you, I actually used the guy's smartphone and took that image in our studio, just as an illustration. So I didn't pose him, yeah, apart from just stand upright, you know, doing a profile shot. And I was a distance away rather than him holding the phone and taking an image. So I'm going to show you why that's important in a minute. Background is white versus, yeah, and that's caused by both lighting and editing versus plain. The brightness and contrast, he looks to me, not forming a judgment, but it looks more handsome and better on the right than it is on the left. The pose was picked up on, so he's slightly turned towards the camera and head turn as well. No facial distortion. So I'm going to cover that one in a moment. So one was an iPhone 12 and one was a Sony A7R4 camera, professional camera. Okay. Just get rid of that. We all right for another few moments, Anjani? Yeah. Okay, so if you don't want to invest in a professional photographer or you can't afford it, do not do a selfie. And I'm going to show you why quickly. About 90% of people cannot take good selfies. These are all examples of images taken where the lighting hasn't been thought about, apart from number 9. So things like light, oh, too much light, not enough light, light in the wrong place, at the wrong side. Yeah, direct on number 5, direct camera flash. So someone's taken the flash on top of the camera that pops up and fired it direct at the subject. Yeah, all sorts of issues. Yeah, some other tips, don't use a cluttered background and get the pose right. For men, I don't know why, there's something psychological, I need to do the research on it. But men do not make good subjects facing direct at the camera. Women do. Yeah, for whatever reason, I'm sure there'll be research into that and I need to look at it, but that is the principle that we work to. To get the pose right, if you're going to do this, smile with the teeth and eyes. Just show a little bit of your teeth, but not a grimace. Not you know, like if you know UK program Wallace and Gromit. Yeah, some of you may have seen that, the plasticine characters. Yeah, do not do that. It just will not look good in a selfie or in fact any pro image that you're going to use a profile. Dress up tidily, clean clothing. It's amazing the number of people that come to our studio where we need a lint remover or the clothing is creased. Yeah, so Anjani with long dark hair. If you wear a white blouse, I'm sure we'll find 2 or 3 loose hairs on it. Yeah, and we remove those up front if we can. Yeah, 1 or 2 other tips. Yeah, you already picked up on the head and shoulders. Do not obstruct the eyes if you can help it. Do not wear sunglasses for this sort of profile image. It doesn't work. Okay, I'm just going to show a video, which is just a few moments. Distance is a big one. Yeah. So this is using 1 subject and 1 photographer. You can see at the top, moving the same camera with a lens, different distance. Now he's used a 24mm lens without getting too technical. He's stuck with that lens. I would probably not use something as wide angle as that. I would use a 50 or a 90 in principle. However, what it does show to illustrate is, if I just play that quickly again, you can see that the closer he gets to the subject, the more distorted the face becomes with the image on the right. right? If you're going to do a selfie, unless your hand or your arm is over 1 meter long, in fact, probably 1.5 meters, do not do a selfie. Otherwise, you're going to get that distortion. And there was a case I was reading in America recently. It was published in one of the journals about something like 72% of women were now going to plastic surgeons to have nose jobs. And the reason for that is they were taking selfies and it makes the nose look flatter. So if I go back to that image previously of Josh, where I had the selfie image versus the professional one, if you actually look at the selfie image, I won't do it now for sake of time, yeah, but his image, his nose is wider on the selfie one. So that's a case in point, and that wasn't planned, it's just how it went. So unless you've got really, really long arms, get someone else to take your photo, for a friend or a family member. Yeah, use a tripod and timer if not. So most mobile phones, if you're going to use your phone, have a timer on it for the flash. And make sure if you're using a phone, it's a decent one, it's modern. Yeah, it's not a low quality camera on it. Don't use a filter when editing if you can help it. You can use apps to edit images, but don't put colored filters and all sorts of weird stuff. It's just not professional. And use the rule of thirds. I won't cover that in detail today because we're pretty much out of time, but effectively it's around the composition where you focus. Basically, a third of the picture is lines where the eye off. If you have a square, make it into 9 equal squares, and you want your eyes in one of those thirds. Okay, my question to you, just to wrap up, if you don't do anything about your profile image, what will be different a year from now? Will you be finding you've got those LinkedIn connections? Will you be finding that you are growing your profile page, you're adding content to it, yeah, and moving forward? If not, why are you here, would be my question. And one other question. We're all on Zoom. So Dr. Raja Lakshmi, if I may suggest, you've had a picture of the flag all the time for this session. So as a viewer, being candid, I don't know whether you're actually there. You've been in the background making a cup of tea, you're doing something else, you're in attendance. Yeah. If I show you the same image on the screen here, how do you present yourself when you're in Zoom meetings? And that leads me back to Anjani to wrap up. Yeah, so sorry, Dr. Raja Lakshmi, I'm picking on you because that's what I see and you're just in the top of the screen. But my point is, if you're not using your Zoom profile and background to represent you or your business, you're missing a trick. So if you've ever noticed on my background, I have basically images that I've taken as part of that, and I brand Pixel Roses, which is our business here in Dubai. Yeah, so you pretty much know what I do and the quality of what we do. Yeah, don't miss that trick. Anjani, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Please, if you could stop sharing the screen. Thank you.
There you go.
This was very insightful, Alan. Thank you very much. Really, personally, I think I've taken a few things back. I have to admit that I did not change my LinkedIn profile picture. It was a selfie for the longest time. And I did when someone nudged me. And I also remember having my dad's photograph on WhatsApp. And then Prashant is asking me one day, who is this person? Because Prashant didn't know my father. So I had to actually say, well, I miss him. That's why I've got it there, which was really not the best excuse. He's like, but I don't know if I'm chatting with you. So interesting. And thank you very much for giving us this insight. As audience, please type in any questions you have. But in the meantime, as you type in the questions, I have a couple of them that came to my mind. And first one was, if you were to give me 3 top tips of taking a picture myself, then what would they be?
So I think I've sort of covered some of those anyway, but get someone else to take it. Don't just do it yourself. And if you are going to do it yourself, don't use, your arm stretched out to take a selfie, because it's going to distort your face and your arms aren't long enough. So I would, look at that and use a tripod if possible. But the most important one for those is get the lighting right. Yeah. So good lighting will enhance your facial features, yeah, and will really set an image apart, as you could see by some of those that I've shown there.
All right. Thank you for that. Another question that's coming to my mind is, would you recommend the same picture for different social media platforms? And you did mention, when you gave that example, you did mention about the website and you did mention about LinkedIn, but what about the other social media platforms?
Well, so you've got lots of things where you need profile images, you know, from YouTube, and I mean, I don't do TikTok, but I believe you can put a profile image there, but that's a different platform altogether. You've got your About Us pages on websites. You've got the contact us pages. You know, websites can be all sorts of things to all sorts of different people. I think the challenge, if you use the same picture, either the same picture over and over and over, is people are not going to see anything new and therefore get bored and not going to stay with you, number one. And number two, it doesn't reflect who you really are in terms of your different personality, how that comes out, that 360-degree view that I talked about earlier. But also, when I showed you those three pictures of the same person, yeah, it took some of you a while to realize it actually was the same person taken at different times, number one. But number two, you would use one image for a certain platform and a different image for a different use case, yeah. And that's what I would say is, think about your audience for whichever platform you are on. So if it's Instagram, yeah, that might be more personal, or if it's product or whatever, yeah, you know, it depends on what your business is. Really does vary. Versus Facebook, yeah, which could be a professional Facebook business page, in which case you might want some profile images. So I would, in that instance, use a LinkedIn one and the same on Facebook. But if it's different purpose, different audience, yeah, then do it differently. So target your audience.
Great. Thank you for that. Couple of questions have come up in the chat box. The first one is, usually folded hands show arrogance and, you know, body language communication. How is that seen in the photography world?
So in a lot of instances, a male particularly who's stood like this, particularly if the face on, if you can see that, comes across as that arrogant and standoffish and all sorts of other terms like that. If they turn slightly sideways and are stood up, like that image I showed before and after, you know, the selfie versus the sort of stood to the side, his arms were folded, but he looked more approachable in the second image because he's turned side on, better smile and all those sort of things. There are things you can do with the hands, particularly with ladies, just where you put the hands, the fingers, can't really show it here, but just maybe if I stand up and disappear, where you can just put the bend at the wrist slightly and just with nice soft hands, strike a slightly different pose. But then depending on the profile image, if it's a LinkedIn profile image, you might only be doing the top, you know, shoulders and head. So hands don't matter. If it's something different where you've got the waist upwards, you might have hands in pockets. So you don't always have to have hands folded, in fact, or arms folded. We recommend not doing that most of the time, unless you do it in a certain style, which is something, if you go to a professional photographer, they should know the poses that work.
Great. It's 7:58. I'm going to take two last questions before we end this evening. The first one is with respect to the photography, the camera at the eye level of the subject. Should the camera be at the eye level of the subject?
Again, depends on what you're trying to achieve. For majority, 95% of profile images for LinkedIn, I would say yes. Yeah, unless you are putting across a particular brand message where you want to be shooting down at someone, but you've got to be careful because that will make them look not as tall, or shooting up, which makes someone look taller. So it really depends. You know, you could do a corporate image, I'm here in Dubai, where I'm looking up at someone, you know, I'm on the ground looking up and they've got the Burj Khalifa in the background, tallest building in the world. In that instance, you've got to get that perspective to get the building in. Yeah, so it really depends on the use case that you're trying to, you know, take the shot for.
Right. And one final question from the audience today is makeup versus natural for women. What is your take on that?
We recommend, so Mandy's a qualified makeup artist in our studio. We recommend in most instances that ladies have makeup because studio lighting particularly can wash out someone's skin color. Yeah. So we're quite conscious of that. So the makeup that we recommend is done in a tasteful way that looks natural. Yeah, what we don't recommend is plastering makeup on so the person just looks odd, and again it's picking up colors and everything else. Yeah, so yeah, we do recommend it generally, but someone that's got perfect skin, doesn't need makeup, and actually is doing the right sort of shoot with natural light, no makeup at all is fine. So again, it really depends on use case and how and where you're using the images for.
Alan, this topic is interesting people a lot. And here's one last minute question I can't but ask you is, what do you think of LinkedIn profile with open to work?
I'm not a fan of them. Yeah, a lot of people I think do those, don't get a job, yeah, or find a job and then don't change it. For me, I would rather, in my professional experience, do a campaign where I'm approaching the organizations I want to work with, because I've done my research on them. I know that their profile, their approach is aligned to my thoughts and processes, yeah, and I want to target those. Generic open to work, I don't know if in fact it'd be an interesting piece of research for the Bento coach as to how successful people that have that on their profile yeah, are, and also what, if you're employed, what message are you showing to your employer?
It's an interesting thing that you say that. We are covering this one next in our next session on the 4th of September. Actually, Vimal is doing a career transition webinar, and we are going to be touching upon what does it mean to have various buttons on and off within LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And before I actually say the rest, I have one very interesting question to ask you. You've got the most amazing virtual background. Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's I put my own video together in the background. So I have a technique that I've developed where I can keep our brand and logo there, but change the images. As you would think, I'm a content creator. Mandy and I are content creators in terms of photographs, and we want to get the message and brand across as to what we do. So that's what we do. I also use a green screen. So I can do this, you know, give you the old Spock thing or wave, and my hand shows. Yeah. So I can move, yeah, without disappearing into the background. So there are tools and techniques you can use. So again, remember I talked about how do you want to be seen on Zoom and represent yourself? Yeah, that's what I'm doing this for.
And for everyone to know, there will be more such sessions coming from the Bento coach about this. And we will definitely be very excited to invite Alan back for some such sessions, as long as he accepts. Don't tell anyone that. But thank you very much for today, Alan. This was an outstanding session. As I said earlier, to you know, as Alan has been an inspiration, not only in what he spoke about today, but also how a career transition happens and how successfully one can move from from literally one completely different profession to another completely different profession. And after 3 decades of doing something, moving into completely new line of work, it's an example that you're setting for us, Alan. And therefore, Vimal's session next week is all about that, how to make that roadmap for a career transition. Join us on the 4th of September for that. Register through the website on our events tab if you already have not. And thank you once again for joining us today. It was our pleasure to host you. Until next time, das vidanya, shaba khair, namaste, salam. Thank you very much, everyone.
All the best. Bye.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Have a good evening. Bye.